The trend for technology is still fine here, but hedge funds in Wall Street have been selling technology shares at a record clip. Let's talk about a little bit what you need to know before the bell this morning. Tonight is the great debate. So that's really going to take center stage over a lot of things, but from a market perspective, it doesn't mean a whole lot. However, we are about 3 months out now from the election, and this is where the options market starts pricing in election outcomes. It's early, but this is where they're going to start beginning to price out those option structures for the outcome of the potential election. Yes, Wall Street bets on the election just like they bet on everything else. The markets are currently fairly elevated here, fairly deviated above long-term trends. We've talked about this before. There's nothing at the moment that suggests that a bigger correction is in the offing, but there's certainly some very interesting things that are happening in the background. As this market continues to go up, and we've talked about this, over the last few days, XLK, as an example, had a little bit of a correction here just recently. And, we saw XLK pull back. This was primarily the sell-off in Nvidia. Nvidia had a bit of a pullback. It then rallied back a bit. But again, we came back down, tested that 20-day moving average on XLK. So again, the trend for technology is still fine here, but hedge funds in Wall Street have been selling technology shares at a record clip, which is kind of interesting when you kind of take a look at the fact that, the XLK in particular, the technology sector, but the S&P as a whole has been continuing to climb. That's been the case because retail investors have been piling into technology. In fact, NVDL, which is the 2-for-1 Nvidia ETF. So this is an ETF, it's a single stock ETF that is leveraged 2-to-1. So you get twice the bang for your buck on Nvidia by buying the share. Retail investors have been flooding NVDL with flows. So there's just been a massive flow of money as people are continuing to chase that Nvidia run, thinking, of course, that it's going to go to the moon. It's not. And eventually, as they always say, trees don't go to the sky. There will be a fairly significant reversal in Nvidia at some point. The question is when. But underneath the surface, somebody's got to buy those shares, right? So every time I put $1 into NVDL of Nvidia, right, somebody's got to buy the share. That ETF has to buy the share. Somebody's got to sell it. Who's selling it? Hedge funds in Wall Street are selling those shares of Nvidia to the retail investor. And as we talked about before, remember that, as is always the case, the reason that Wall Street always wins at the end of the day is because they control the flows. And at the end of the day, the retail investor is the pigeon at the poker table. So, this is just how markets work. Understand that. But again, right now, everything is fine. The trends are okay, but we are starting to get to that point in the market cycle where we're beginning to see that underlying deterioration in breadth, momentum. And of course, now we're seeing hedge funds, Wall Street, et cetera, beginning to sell stocks. They're the sellers at this moment to the buyers, which buyers always tend to buy high and sell low. And again, that's the retail side of the equation. So just make sure that you're not the pigeon at the poker table. That's what you need to know before the bell this morning.